Balake, where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Welcome back, everybody. Ron is here with a little bit more SPTV, where every day's a great day not to be in a cult. Guys, I did a video last night about the awesome victory in court yesterday. William Good, Streets LA, Scientology audit, Film the Police, The Good Father, and won a victory in court regarding a restraining order that was taken out by Francois Coster, the owner of La Poubelle, basically working as an agent of Scientology in a number of ways. The victory was amazing. If you watched the video last night, I read for you the judge's ruling, and I said that William and I were going to talk about it, and that is what we are going to do. Before I bring him on, let me show you his YouTube channel, Scientology Audit. Guys, I swear to God, I'm going to ask William about this once it comes on screen. This channel cannot be more than a year old. He literally just passed me in subscribers this week. 250,000 subs in a year is absolutely unbelievable. And he's also pretty prolific on Twitter. You can find him on Twitter right here. All right, the one and the only, the Good Father. How's it going, William?
How's it going, man?
Did you like the intro?
I did. That was pretty good.
Okay, look, I read the preliminary ruling that the judge adopted as an actual published ruling. It looked like an absolute smackdown. How did it go down in court?
So, in court, I have to only rely on what my lawyer said. I have never been to court for this in person. I didn't have to. So they handled it all in court. But, if you look at the ruling itself, it was a smackdown. This is not just a loss. And it's not just a loss for Francois with prejudice, but it's a complete smackdown overall.
Yeah. I didn't know you weren't in court. I didn't know that.
No. Well, listen, that's why I have good lawyers. I've actually, on this case, I've never been in court. They tried to get a continuance, believe it or not, again, but they were denied that. And in my other case, I only went for a few days of hearings. I hadn't been there for like the 6 prior court appearances we had. My lawyer always handled that. So I never, on this case, I'll be honest with you, I did very little of it. They just handled everything behind the scenes, prepared all the briefs and stuff, and that was it.
Wow. Well, I did see you were out there at La Poubelle last night, and Francois wasn't there. And I noticed it seemed like half of that tent that was normally there has been taken down. I don't know. What do you predict is the future of Francois and La Poubelle?
I predict that, like I was saying last night, if you told me, hey, you come out here and you personally, William, if you protest for the next 4 months and you'll cost La Poubelle $10,000 in lost sales, would you take that? I'd be like, yeah, that's a good deal. Well, I mean, this court case just lost her another 40, 50, 60, 70, 80,000, undetermined yet, but it cost her a huge chunk of money. And actually didn't really cost La Poubelle, because at the end of the day, that's an entity, and if it goes under, she's created a new entity. No, right. She personally owes me this money. So, I mean, that's a huge win as far as I'm concerned. I also think we may have set some precedents here. People have been, Scientology likes using restraining orders as weapons, right? And they win some, they lose some. They probably lose way more than they win. But I don't know, has there been a case before where we actually had an anti-slap win against the Church of Scientology? This may be the first one. I don't think it'll be the last one. I think, and honestly, I wonder, has it been a tool that people have thought about using in the past against Church of Scientology, being that it's sort of an obscure rule, and a lot of judges don't even understand it. I think now that this happened and people can use this as a template of how to fight back, not just fight back against a restraining order where you're on defense. We got ahead of it. My restraining order hearing for La Poubelle for Francois Coster is set for next week, but by filing the anti-slap, it allows us to have a hearing before the restraining order hearing to decide if the merits are there and if it meets the criteria. Since it met the criteria of my position, the anti-slap, we won that. And then next week's hearing was immediately brought up to yesterday, when she dismissed that with prejudice, which means Francois can't even come after me for another restraining order. Not just like refiling this. she can't come after me for another restraining order. It would require
Really?
essentially me getting arrested by the police
Mm.
and the police sort of helping to initiate the process. She can't. She just can't. She cannot refile and she cannot file. She's in a tough
Wow.
position. My lawyer wonders if she'll try to come after like unsafe labor thing. I wish she would. She'll lose then. That'll be another $50,000 in the hole for her. Worse for me.
Wow. Now, look, aren't you in the middle of another hearing for another request for a restraining order with this Joey guy?
Oh, okay, you can't say that name.
You can't?
No, no. Listen, it's been made very clear in court that you know that's part of their efforts to get a restraining order against me happens to be that I use that name because he doesn't like that name. That's not his preferred name. They
Is it
feel
his
that
real name?
they
Are we,
feel that if we say that, we're trying to say it in a silly, try to make him look silly. And so I don't want to make him look silly. I want to go by the name that he prefers. He prefers to be called Rocket. And so I prefer to call him Rocket, not the other silly name.
Rocket?
Yeah, that's the preferred name, not the silly name. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I have court next
So,
Tuesday. I can't get into depth about it. I will then.
okay,
of
okay, okay.
course.
So, but tell me if my understanding of this is correct. In that situation, Rocket asked for a temporary restraining order. He was denied, but then asked for a hearing anyway to try and get a permanent restraining order. And you guys are on like day 3 or 4?
No, yeah, it's a little different. So
Oh.
Francois asked for a temporary restraining order and she was denied outright. And so we still had the court date for the regular restraining order. And so that's when we filed the slap to preempt the restraining order hearing, and we won that. Him, on the other hand, he got the temporary restraining order that covers him and his dog. So I'm restrained from coming within 100 yards of his dog because apparently I put his dog at risk because we chanted "Save his dog." He shouldn't do that, he claims, because that's, I don't know, it's something. Um, that's next Tuesday. Well, we had an anti-slap hearing on that. On that, we were denied because, there's the 2 prongs. First prong is you have to show that it stems from First Amendment activities, being a protest happening. And we won every aspect of that, except for one time the judge said no, but on January 17th, when you were down at the other building on Ivar at 1 o'clock in the morning, and he showed up over there, and I yelled at him, that wasn't protected because you were not protesting. And actually we were protesting. We were literally and remember, First Amendment protected activity is not just free speech, but also freedom of assembly. And we were doing both. In fact, I had left across the street to go film a police stop and was talking to a guy about Scientology during the police stop. So the judge misunderstood that. So because of that, we were denied. We have until Saturday to refile the slap, and we will.
Okay.
With that having been said, because that was such a technicality that they got wrong, we can easily win on that. But we also have the restraining order hearing on Tuesday. We've gone through 3 days of trial so far. And I'm still on the stand. Technically, I was on the stand. They were, my lawyer questioned me, and then they were in the middle of cross-examining me. When we ran out of time, the judge had to leave on like 3 weeks vacation. And so the earliest date is on July 2nd, where I'll retake the stand, and we'll do, then that'll be it. And quite honestly, that the theatrics in that case, and actually information in that case, has been valuable. This person, Rocket, um, um, this person claimed that Mindy was threatening him, and he was considering getting a restraining order against Mindy, because
Little
yeah,
Mindy? Little Mindy?
yeah, little. I got to tell you, the scariest person on earth, right?
Although Rocket's a little guy too, right?
He's decent size,
Okay.
size guy.
I've never seen him in person. I've only seen him in your videos, and compared to you, he's kind of a little guy.
Yeah, I guess I might kind of tower over him, but he was talking about how he was considering getting a restraining order. My lawyer said, well, why didn't you? And he said, because this case against me is too expensive. It's been very expensive. And by saying that, it opened up the door. My lawyer then said, oh, it's expensive. Are you getting help with your legal fees? Is the Church of Scientology helping or paying for your legal fees? Their lawyer jumped up, objection, pulling out all types of paperwork. We were expecting this, and here's this case, and here's this case. And the judge had to go into her chambers for an hour and a half to research it. Came back out. She said, I researched it. And he's like, you're absolutely wrong. That's not what these cases say. He is going to have to answer that question. And he had to answer that, yes, the Church of Scientology is paying for his legal fees, not is paying for part, but is paying for his legal fees. You have to understand something. It's never made sense in the case because this is a law firm that handles pretty high profile cases. They recently handled one, what's her name? Rebecca something. She just killed 2 kids driving drunk, and she just got sentenced to a bunch of years up in, maybe it was in Pacific Palisades or Hollywood Hills. Rebecca Grossman, very high profile case, very wealthy person. They represent her. But in this case, the partner is representing Joey, a partner, which is just for a restraining order. I shouldn't have said that word. I said it. I
Rocket.
apologize. I was not trying to make it seem like he was silly. But the partner is representing this restraining order case, and a kind of really silly restraining order case. And on top of it, there are like 3 other attorneys that they have in their office that are dedicated to working on this case. So they are putting an enormous amount of resources. Again, a restraining order case where we're going to have going on our 4th day of trial, that doesn't happen. It's usually a 1-day thing. They want to win this bad, and Church of Scientology paid a lot of money to do it.
Let me ask you this. Has anything come up in the proceedings about how and why Rocket just happens to appear at 3 or 4 different locations around Hollywood where protesters are doing their thing?
So, yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a lot. He went on stand, and in my personal opinion, it was an absolute disaster on his part. No, my lawyer asked him, did you get tickets? He claimed that he had nothing to do with Scientology. He's not connected in any way. And said he doesn't have any friends that are Scientologists, although he has known Scientologists in the past who have helped them and so on and so forth. And she said, well, did you get tickets to go to the New Year's event for Scientology? And he admitted yes. And then she said, not did you show up, but did you get tickets for it in advance? And did you get tickets for the Winter Wonderland reopening? Yes. And I whispered to my judge, because I remember one day I was sitting outside filming outside the building, and that person walked in there, Rocket, and I saw him. He was handed a Christmas gift. I asked him, did he get a Christmas gift from them? And he admitted he did, while he's saying he's not associated with them anyway. And then now to find out, and the judge, even if, listen, when the way that they objected, when my lawyer asked if the Church of Scientology is paying the legal fees, the way that the lawyer objected, it told the story. They definitely did.
Yeah.
And to make it seem like that you're not connected. Well, we also found out another thing they objected to, but the judge forced them to answer. My lawyer asked, have you counseled anyone else on getting a restraining order against me? And he admitted yes. We don't know who. Francois, maybe Patrick Perry, possibility. Patrick Perry, I saw him a few days ago hanging out in front of the Scientology building. I walked a full block and it's closed, but he's hanging out there in front of it. Interesting.
It is interesting. I heard, and yeah, I heard that at yesterday's hearing that neither you nor the other defendant had to show up to. Scientology attorney Kendrick Moxon was there in attendance
Good.
for a restraining order that was supposed to have nothing to do with Scientology.
If I knew that he was there, then I would have come too, because I would have had a few things to say to him. Yeah, it has nothing to do with Scientology. Has nothing to do with Scientology, but here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I wanted to, look, one of your big things is exposing police corruption.
Mhm.
The police corruption has been so evident in their interactions with the protesters, and I want to ask your opinion on: does it seem like that corruption has not seeped into the judicial system?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the language that the judge used, it was like saying, she was kind of putting Scientology on blast a little bit, right? And she's saying, yeah, no, this definitely has to do with Scientology. It seemed like somebody who was unafraid of taking on Scientology a little bit. And listen, I feel with the other judge in my other case, it's the same way. I think that these judges care about the merits, care about the facts, and and I think they do hold free speech. They think it's precious and that it should be protected. So yeah, even though we see this relationship with the police, it hasn't hit the bench yet. Not that I see.
That's awesome. I mean, even in the Danny Masterson case, of course, Masterson's criminal team was working in coordination with his civil team while pretending that they weren't and pretending that Scientology had nothing to do with it, even though his civil attorneys also represent Scientology and all this crazy stuff. And I remember the criminal defense team complaining and objecting whenever the prosecution would sort of imply that Scientology had its fingers in this pie. And the judge at one point was like, if you don't like the implication that Scientology is involved, then maybe their attorneys should stop showing up
Oh,
every day.
oh. Listen, I
Oh,
just think that I want to sever that relationship they have with the police, right? And we know that
yeah.
the relationship they have with the LAPD. Listen, I do think that relationship is getting strained. I do, I do.
Mm,
I think that they're not covering up as much, or at least, even though, yes, are they do they still do things at the blue building? Well, that's Northeast Division versus Hollywood Division. I think Hollywood Division has sort of learned their lesson. They're not showing up like they had been. They're not
mm.
being as aggressive as they had been, not using a legal system like they had. Northeast still hasn't totally learned their lesson yet, but hey man, they went in there and arrested that guy the other night, which was
They
pretty
sure did.
surprising.
They sure did. Do you happen to know anything about the follow up on that? Like, was he actually booked and charged?
It seems like he was booked and charged, but charged with a misdemeanor. I think it should have been a felony.
Mm,
But listen, you got to take wins. Just getting him in there, just getting him in the backseat of a patrol car, that's a big step right there.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got to
Yeah.
tell you, if the roles were reversed, somebody would have been, if Aja had charged at somebody like the way he did,
Oh,
then
yeah.
Aja would have been charged with a felony.
Yeah.
You know, so
The other thing that you did a week or two ago, I forget, I'm losing all sense of time these days, is you totally called out Scientology and the LAPD's bluff that you guys weren't allowed to walk on L. Ron Hubbard Way. And I can't believe they got away with that nonsense for like a month. For a
I
freaking
didn't
month.
I didn't know I hadn't been over there in a while, so I didn't
Yeah.
really know. And then Jessica had said that they don't have the permit posted, and that the permit didn't stop the use in the street. I hadn't seen a permit, so she was gonna go walk through there. She was gonna walk there. I'm like, I'm gonna come over there and do this too. And she pulled up the permit at first, and I misread it at first. But then it showed in the notes below that it said it cannot stop access to the public. This is only relates to vehicles. So I'm like, oh, we're going through. Go ahead. The only thing I was worried about is, are they going to claim that I tried touching one of them or I pushed one of them out of the way? I figured they were going to lie that say there was some physical contact. So I was going out of my way to make sure I didn't touch the lady with the eyelashes and stuff. But yeah, I mean, the bluffing that went on, we're going to have you arrested. You're going to be trespassed. Again, there's a lot of overlap with what I deal with the police. I was talking about this last night. Police don't generally, the average officer doesn't really understand the law, doesn't understand laws. They understand some, they don't, and they make things up as they go along because they're not used to being challenged.
Right.
And if you challenge them, and my thing is fine, if you're going to arrest me, go ahead and arrest me. You're going to arrest me illegally, and I'll be a huge drama queen about that and make a whole thing about it. Is that what you really want? And listen, push comes to shove, they didn't have a permit for it. Listen, they don't have, as far as I'm concerned, they keep on having these residual events that have been going on there for a month that shut down L. Ron Hubbard Way every single day for a month.
Yeah.
All of that is illegal because I haven't seen, there's not a permit posted. And
Yeah.
if when you go to the city websites or the city departments, they're not even producing permits for this. It's just one of those odd cases where only for this. And so, listen, now this La Poubelle fight is over, and of course, I want to get a few licks in on her. I really want to make a big stink about how the misuse of these permits for L. Ron Hubbard
Yeah.
Way, because they have it booked up for the next month. They essentially made it a private street; it's just their property now.
So look, someone told me that there's the whole mechanism in place that exists to issue permits, but that there is an inspector that can be called out to go, look, this street has been falsely closed. There's no event. There's no one here. The application was false. It's almost sort of similar to slap.
Yeah, I mean the documentation is there. I've seen Chris has shown it, and Aj have shown it day after day. No one's using that. All right, and I've talked to people in the neighborhood. They're unhappy with L. Ron Hubbard Way to begin with because there's lack of parking in the neighborhood, and they've taken away a whole street of parking just by setup because there's no parking allowed there. But now you're taking away access ways and stuff. They're already annoyed by the music too. I've heard about that. But they're taking away access and acting like they own it. And listen, it's one thing is they're not exactly open to the community. Sure, they have their self-serving events and stuff, but they're very disconnected from the community. And then you're taking over a block. That's not going to go over well.
Yeah.
Those planters that they put out there now, they're so cheaply made. And listen, Jessica noticed that they're planting plastic flowers in them and
I
stuff.
saw that. It's so
It's
funny.
like, but those are illegal, right? The story was in the news recently about they put some planters near my house to keep homeless from setting up encampments there, and the council member Soto Martinez said no, they're illegal, and they removed them because they didn't get a permit from. Scientology didn't get a permit for these either, and Hugo Soto Martinez is also, it's also his district. If he moved these planners over by my house, I want to make sure that those planners are moved too. And so those are two new fights to work on.
So I was going to ask you about that. So I've always wondered, I mean, ever since those planters appeared, how a private entity is allowed to put giant planters like that out on public property. And, um, uh,
As far as I'm
and
concerned, well, as far as
go ahead.
I'm concerned, that's litter.
Right.
It's somebody
So
dumped some
like
stuff on.
if someone were to damage those planters, I'm sorry, is that private property or is it
No,
public property?
no, listen, so they actually make their own planters, right? They're cheaply made, but this is a technique that's used to keep homeless encampments away from certain areas. And the bid districts, the business districts will spend a good amount of money to put some pretty expensive planters out there. And my whole thing is whenever I see them, I'm like, hey guys, I'll film them. I'm like, free planters out here. This thing's cost $100. You want to get one, come pick one up. But yeah, no, you can remove them. They had put some of that plastic netting that my guy,
I saw
what's
that.
his name? What's his name? Henry went and removed. That's litter. It's on a public easement and there's not a permit for it being there. That's no different than me if I threw a piece of a bottle on the ground right there. Somebody would have the right to pick it up, and somebody has a right to pick up the litter, including those planters. So yeah, as far as I'm
Right.
concerned, anybody can move them.
Sounds like somebody has a right to go pick up those planters.
Well, I'm also concerned because when you look at the construction, they're so cheaply made that if you just had some wire snips and just snip the metal, it would all kind of fall apart. And I'm worried that somebody's going to go over there and do that they're going to take a wire snip and just kind of pull and just go a wire snip. Like late at night, somebody may just end up over there. And I'm
Right.
concerned. I think it's a public safety issue at that point.
And at this point, I believe they have filled those planters pretty much near up to the top, even though there's no real plants in them. They've filled them with dirt. So
No, no,
if
no, no, no.
somebody, God
Dirt.
forbid,
Dirt. No.
what is it?
There's like chunks of concrete and rocks. It looks like they got it from like a demolition site. It's not even like dirt.
Oh my God. So God forbid somebody were to show up and something were to happen to those planters, all of L. Ron Hubbard Way and the sidewalks would just be covered with essentially construction debris.
That's what I'm concerned about with those snips. If somebody just took snips and just walked over and snipped each one, and it technically wouldn't even be considered damaging property because whose property is it? then
Right.
it would all spill out and make a mess. I'm concerned that would be a public health hazard. So I don't want anybody going over there late at night with snips and snipping them because it's just too
God
easy.
God forbid.
Yeah.
The other thing that occurred to me is I remember when Jessica Palmadessa was out trying to get a permit to close L. Ron Hubbard Way down for her own event. The city said, that's not necessary to close down the street because you're totally free to protest on the sidewalks of L. Ron Hubbard Way, unrestricted anytime. Now that Scientology has shown that they will close down L. Ron Hubbard Way to prevent protesting, it actually gives Jessica a very strong argument to go, no, we have to do this because Scientology tries to stop us. And if she does choose to use this as an opportunity to move forward and try to pull a permit, I'm more than happy to crowdfund anything that's needed to help make that happen because it just feels right.
It just feels right. Listen, that street has been closed week after week for a month, and it's basically going to be have permits going through all of next month that really no one has showed up to
Are
attend.
you serious? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, no, they have I think throughout the whole month of July,
What?
Chicano event and Summer Nights Lights and some sort of military thanks week. No, they have it's been closed every day for a month and it's essentially set right now. And it seems like new permits every couple of days that they're applying for. It's going to be closed for the next month and it's outrageous. So,
Wow.
yeah, this to me is
Unbelievable.
this is because to me it was they had the encampment there and they were worried that there was going to have the the little car thing around the blue
Oh, the
building,
caravan?
the caravan, and so they wanted to stop that from happening. And they did the same thing. Listen, they did the same thing at the Celebrity Center. They closed down the street there too. It prevented us from going around the block there when we had done the caravan. um
Wow.
and it just kind of continued over because it had been mentioned about putting tents on L. Ron Hubbard Way, so now they have planters out on L. Ron Hubbard Way to prevent the tents. Listen, they're very reactive. I always thought that Scientology shouldn't have a reactive mind, and it's very reactive right now.
All right, let's tackle some comments and questions that the lovely Barbara, SBTV Tattoo Warriors in the back office, helping us star. Okay, Mandy Beach says, an article today, crews of workers removed the planters along Highland and Hollywood on Monday after the city found that the planters were erected without proper approval from the government. I wonder if there was any fine associated with this. Do you suspect there would be, or maybe not? Too much trouble.
There might be because they had to use city resources, and I know how these things work. They probably had about 40 sanitation people. Two of them worked while they're out there. It costs the city money. They may be responsible for those costs. But
Mhm.
yeah, that's the exact incident I was talking about. They removed them because they said they weren't permitted. The council member
Right.
said that, so they need to do the same thing over at L. Ron Hubbard Way. It's the same council district.
Be amazing. I wonder who somebody must have campaigned, like because these politicians don't take action unless like someone's pestering them about it. So someone showed a lot of initiative getting those things removed on Hollywood and Highland and Hollywood. Maybe we can find out who that is and
It's
ask them for a
actually
little.
it's technically on Sunset near Highland, Sunset in
Yeah, I thought it was
Manhattan.
Highland and Sunset, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, Mandy Beach also says the best part about the win is Francoise's lawyer had to put on record that Francois supported rapist Danny Masterson and that the victim was found to be drugged in her establishment. Yeah.
I can't stress enough how terrible that lawyer is. She's an outright liar, and she was just lying. Like she listen. She never served me in time. She never did anything in time. All the paperwork that she had to submit, she never served in time. She didn't do it properly. Because of that, she wasn't really allowed to have anything come into evidence. So then she became reliant on my evidence because a lot of the evidence she was claiming are just like when Danny and DOA and Cam got arrested after
Yeah.
Cam was attacked. They were trying
Yeah.
to say that I was responsible for that incident. Anything that ever happened in La Poubelle, I was responsible for. And we were like, yeah, let's show the video because the video shows I had nothing to do with anything. They were trying to say that I instigated the fight, that I got into a bloody fight. I didn't ever throw a
Yeah.
punch.
That's right.
So she was just a liar
Yeah.
and incompetent. I mean, she couldn't even number pages correctly when they had to have the affidavit of Francois, sworn statement. It was in a third person. It wasn't, and it wasn't even notarized. She doesn't know what she's doing. And she even claimed,
Amazing.
she even tried to get a continuance claiming that I committed identity theft against the lawyer because I bought leahsafian.net and leahsafianlaw.com, because I think it's very important to warn the community about this shoddy lawyer who uses the legal system as a weapon. I'm going to make sure that my community knows about that. But yeah, she calls that identity theft.
Oh, that's so funny because Scientology bought AaronsmithLevin.com and put up an entire hate site about me. And apparently that's not identity theft. That's okay.
Oh, okay. I mean, but well, Leah Safian had come to my lawyer a month ago and said, "How about we work out a deal? We'll drop everything. What you are willing to do is we're going to set up barriers down the block, and if the protesters will stand behind the barriers like a Planned Parenthood style barrier, then then Francois Kloster is willing to write an apology letter to the Jane Does." And my lawyer was just disgusted by this. And I said, listen, first off, she's going to write an apology letter to the Jane Does regardless, because it's going to be necessary to rehabilitate her image. So she should do that on her own. She shouldn't be using that as leverage. And secondly, I am not standing behind a barrier down the street. First off, how do you enforce that? How does that become every other protester's problem? How,
Right.
I told them last night, if I ever came there and said, guys, you have to stand down the street because of the deal I worked out, cancel me. And if you ever see me willingly stand behind a barrier as part of a deal, cancel me, because that'd be the first time in the United States that somebody willingly chose to do that. And so, yeah, what a hell of a deal. Of course I said no. And now she owes 50, 60, $70,000. She's not very skilled. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Cascade says, can't wait for La Poubelle to transform into good food.
Well, I was gonna call it La Goudel, but it's, if she's low on cash and struggling, she could always sell it to me for a good price. I figure sell it to me for 70,000. We call everything even, and
Someone, someone commented on my video last night and said, if Francois will agree to change the name of her restaurant to Scientology as a cult, will William agree to drop the lawyer's fees?
Yes, I would, provided but she'd have to stay in business for at least a year. She can't just change the name and then just close up. It needs to be around, and I have to have the first right of buying the restaurant afterwards.
There you go. Okay, Stacy SMR. The mayor wants to restrict protesting in zones near a house of worship. I wonder if that would affect what streets LA does. Oh, this is Karen Bass. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, Karen Bass. There was the protest that happened over in Pico Robertson area on Sunday. It was a lot of violence. Karen Bass is just talking, right? First off, she can't restrict it around a house of worship. The only thing that they can do is maybe they can restrict it to within 100 to 300 feet of any target place. But good luck enforcing any of that. It's not going to work. She was kind of just trying to do a little bit of. She was just kissing ass, quite honestly. She talked. She's not a very good mayor, and yeah, she had ran that by and was talking about banning wearing of masks at protests. That would be unconstitutional. So yeah, she's just talking. I'm not worried about that in the least.
Yeah, okay, good. Windy City Thetan watch, $25 if Aaron can say Rocket with a straight face. Isn't Rocket the name of the trash panda in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie? Okay. And if we can't say Rocket's real name, are you still allowed to say his dog's name?
I don't even know his dog's name. That's the crazy part. I don't. I never thought about that.
Marjan K. Kavusi, thank you very much. E. Squaw, thank you for the coverage and dedication. Glad you put on these LA Scientology protesters. I mean, I'll tell you what, the entire protest movement itself got started because of William Good. So it's not me putting anybody on. Yes, we all like to promote our favorite protesting channels, of course, but believe me, this is not my bag, baby. This is just something I like to support. And honestly, you know what's funny? What's funny? And this is a weird thing to say, but we're about that YouTube game. Your audience was built on what you do, and your audience absolutely loves what you do. My audience gives me shit when I try to do the same thing. They do not like it.
We all have our own things, right? I always say that too, right? When it comes to protesting, people should look at things that they like that I do or they think will be effective, but find their own way of doing things. Do your own thing. And we all do our own things in different ways. If I tried to do what you do, my audience would be like, "You're awful at this." Go yell at some cops or something. That's what they would
Yeah.
say.
I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, I'm not sure I've said this in a video before, but some of the times when I've gone down to Clearwater, downtown Clearwater, and done the protesting at the Flagland base, and I'll actually have an interaction with someone, and I'll walk with them and ask them a bunch of questions and try to get them to disavow Danny Masterson. At the end of it, I'm thinking to myself, that was the greatest thing I've ever done. And in my comments, it's like, why are you harassing these poor people? And I'm like, oh my God.
No, I get that too. I get that too. I get that all the time.
Okay, so this is a question specifically for you here. Ron, can you ask Streets if he came up in the hardcore scene back east? I've had a suspicion as much. He's vegan, he's fearless, he has zero tolerance for corrupt authority, like so many. What is NYHC kids? What does that mean? Do you know what that means?
NYH.
Oh, New York hardcore kids. New York hardcore?
Yeah, no, I wasn't a hardcore kid. I'd work and I'd go jogging and stuff like that. I wasn't involved with anything. I've been here for 20 years. I wasn't involved with any sort of activism until, I guess, I was dealing with some stuff with like Long Beach schools back in maybe like 2015 to 2018, 19, but not involved with much as far as activism until like 2020. That's when it really started. Before that, I was a little bit of a bootlicker even.
Were you ever in New York?
Oh yeah, I was born and raised in New York. So
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
yeah, that's where I was born and raised. I was there until 2001.
So when you say bootlicker, does that mean very much pro police?
Just
Pro authority?
I was very, and I still am pro rules. Like I believe in rules. I believe everybody, and we should, or if there are rules I don't believe in, we still all have to abide by the same rules. And then that's a lot of the problem I have with the cops. They break the rules or they think that the rules don't apply to them. So I've always been sort of that way, but my fight, I didn't see the corruption in the police back then the way I do now. And honestly, a lot of this stuff, when it comes with the corruption in the police, I think my Scientology channel and the stuff we're doing is informing the public about that too. I think when people are seeing, when you're getting arrested, right? And they'll say they didn't arrest you. They arrested you. They didn't book you, but you were arrested. And that whole incident, I think people look at that and say, wow, this is pretty corrupt. And again, I'll say this again, that was also honestly a very helpful incident, because in that case, it's sort of the flip to what we usually see. The cops were coming after the white guy on behalf of the black guy, showing the police corruption and showing that it can happen to anybody.
That's true. That's true. I mean, it's crazy that, yeah, you've got, well, I don't want to say the black guy, but you said it. You got the black guy who's allowed to stand there and frisk himself and pull the knives out of his pockets and turn them over.
And machetes.
And you've got me like handcuffed up against a car. It was insane.
Yeah. So everybody got a chance to see that. So thank you. In some ways, that's helpful.
My pleasure. Okay, Ann Casillas. Streets, when you hire a lawyer who wears fuzzy Crocs to court, you don't get page numbers without a second chair.
And I laugh because my lawyer comes in the court with like her red suit and her pink stilettos and stuff, and she's fierce as hell. But she outshined Leah Safian's lawyer, Leah Safian, like so badly. So my lawyer treated her like a school kid.
Who's this person? Do you know? Anna from Canada says, Sue Percool does a great job researching permits.
Yeah, everybody follow her. She's the one who I always go to when I need to know about permits at L. Ron Hubbard Way and stuff. So she's the one who found out they're working on these permits going forward. So that's a YouTube channel. Go to her community notes, and she's always got the latest updates. She's great, and people should support her.
Oh, that's awesome. She might have been the one in the chat. I saw a comment that said that one of the inspectors actually had come out and said there was no violation. So that's interesting. Okay, let's see. What else do we have here? Ms. Scorp, Arizona. Do you think the dirt could be the asbestos from Golden Era Productions? Okay. Oh God. NatCat180, the Dollar Tree plants are Aaron's fault. Just saying. Yeah, it's funny that you get blamed for everything that goes on out there in the protest world. I pretty much get blamed for everything else. Down the rabbit hole news. Streets on fire. Okay, Kyla says, Aaron, talk about how Miscavige had a whole sidewalk demolished to stop the protesters. Have you heard about that back in the day here in Clearwater?
No, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, when they found out that that there was protests going to be organized, they literally tore up all of their own sidewalks just so that there was nowhere for the protesters to stand that would be near the buildings. I mean, yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, this has been awesome. Thanks for doing this with me. One more time, let me show everyone. This is William's Twitter, Film the Police. He's prolific on there, and he's prolific on YouTube as well. Scientology Audit, Streets, LA. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And thank you, Francois Coster, for the 50,000. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, none of this would be possible without you. And as always, our number one sponsor, we want to thank David Miscavige. You make it all possible, sir. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe